Hello and welcome to the Recipe Scrapbook. Today we are going to explore how fermentation helps bread to rise whilst making some plaited garlic bread. Here are a list of ingredients and equipment that you will need to be able to make it. Step 1. Prepare yourself and your unit. This includes washing your hands. We need to do this using hot water and hand soap for 30 seconds. This is done to remove any bacteria that may already be on your hands. Make sure you get under your fingertips. There'll be bacteria hiding underneath them as well. Rinse your hands under hot water to make sure that your hands are clean, and then dry them with paper towel. Spray your surfaces with work surface sanitizer and wipe them down using a clean cloth. Even if they look clean, you never know if someone's been there before you and what they've done on their work surface. If you need to measure out your ingredients, make sure the units are correct on the scales. You can change them by pressing the unit button. Use your weighed out ingredients to create a mise en place that will look something a bit like this. Step 2. Preheat your oven to 200 degrees Celsius, then collect a baking tray and line it with greaseproof paper. Step 3. Sift the flour and salt into a mixing bowl and stir in the yeast and sugar. Sifting the flour is important for two reasons. It incorporates air into your recipe, as well as removes any potential lumps from the flour. Make a well in the middle of your ingredients and then pour your warm water into the well. I would suggest adding your water a little bit at a time, as it's a lot easier to add water than it is to take it away once it's been added. It is also a very easy mistake to make, and before you know it, you'll end up with some bread soup. Keep adding water and stirring with a table knife until the mixture starts to clump together. You'll see big lumps form in the mixing bowl. At this point, when you have clumps of dough in your bowl, you need to get your hands in there to bring the dough together into a ball. You may find, like me, that your dough is still a little bit dry, so you can add a little bit more water into your bowl if you need to. This will help your dough stick together. Alternatively, if your dough at this point is too moist, you can always make sure that you have plenty of flour on your work surface and knead the dough into the extra flour to make sure it's the right consistency. When you make dough though, it's very important to remember that no two doughs are the same. One might need 100 millilitres of water, some might need 200 millilitres, but it's important that you get it right at this stage. Eventually though, you will have a dough that ends up cleaning the bowl that looks a little bit like this. The bread dough itself contains yeast. This acts as a leavening agent, which means that it gives rise to the bread and creates a more open and airy texture. The yeast reacts with the warm water, as well as the starch in the flour, and causes carbon dioxide to be formed inside the bread dough. The carbon dioxide air bubbles combine then with the gluten inside the bread dough, which causes it to have a stronger structure and hold the air bubbles in. Step 4. Knead the dough on a floured work surface for 8 to 10 minutes. Use the flour dredger to give a good coating of flour onto your work surface so the dough doesn't stick. Place the dough on your floured work surface and then you'll be able to start working it. To knead the dough, start off by pressing through the centre of the dough and then folding it back over and then returning it back into the centre again. I do this repeatedly here for 8 to 10 minutes. We need bread for three main reasons. It firstly helps gluten to form inside your bread dough when the flour and water combine. Fermentation takes place here, which allows the proteins to expand. This is demonstrated in bread dough when it becomes elastic. Kneading will also evenly distribute the yeast amongst the dough. This means carbon dioxide air bubbles can be created and also provide height to a loaf of bread. This also helps to develop the volume of the loaf itself. Step 5. Divide your dough into equal sized pieces and shape them with your hands into rolls or plats. To make garlic bread plats, you'll firstly need to split your dough into 3 equal sized pieces. You will need to use your hands here to make the equal sized pieces into the same shape. I am stretching out the dough here to make 3 cylindrical tube-shaped pieces. Once you have 3 equal-sized pieces, you will need to join the bits of dough together at one end. You will need to ensure once again that all sizes still are of equal length. To plait the bread itself, firstly number 1 folds over number 2, and then number 3 folds over number 2, and you repeat the process again and again until you reach the end of the dough. You will then need to make sure that both the ends are joined together properly so that they do not separate when they cook. Place the loaf on your baking tray and leave to prove while you prepare your garlic butter. Proving the bread dough at this point is absolutely vital as it improves the overall quality of the bread. Not only will the flavour and the texture improve, it will also give a better volume and rise to the bread when it's baking. Step 6. Start off by crushing or mincing your garlic and preparing it ready to add to a saucepan. Make sure you take care to remove the garlic skin from the clove. The skin will not have a very good texture or flavour to add to your garlic bread. If you do not have a garlic crusher, use a chopping board and knife to be able to mince your garlic into small diced pieces. You can then add the garlic pieces into a saucepan with butter and mixed herbs so that it is ready to melt. You can then melt the butter in a saucepan on a low heat until it looks bright, golden, yellow and slightly lumpy from the garlic. Once it reaches this stage, you can start brushing half of the mixture all over your plaited garlic bread. This will make it golden brown and garlicky once cooked. Save the other half of the butter mixture for later. You can always brush more on whilst it's cooking in the oven. Once covered in garlic butter, you need to carefully place this into the oven using oven gloves to help you. Seven. Bake them for around 15 minutes or until they're golden brown. Once they're taken out the oven, you can brush any more of the garlic butter mixture onto the bread in order to give it some extra garlicky flavour. You may also like to have the opportunity to grate some cheese on top of the bread. Should you do this, you will need to put the bread back into the oven for a few more minutes to ensure the cheese has melted. The cheese will have melted onto the bread, and when it's golden brown and looks like this, you may take it out the oven. So there we have it. That is how we use fermentation to be able to make the ideal bread for a plaited garlic bread loaf. I've been Mr. Fowler. Thank you for joining me in ripping another page out of my recipe scrapbook. Goodbye.